Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to my book club. So the book we have today is Creativity by John Cleese. So most people think that creativity is some mysterious and rare gift, and even more think of it as being entirely about the arts, music, poems, movies, paintings, etc. According to John Cleese, one of the comic geniuses behind Monty Python, neither of these two common beliefs bears any relation to reality. Creativity can be seen in every area of life. He writes, and anyone can be creative. In this short and cheerful guide, he draws on cutting-edge research and his lifelong experience as a writer to get to the bottom of the creative process. So keep watching till the end, guys, and don't forget to like and subscribe so we enjoy this book together. Let's go. Creativity and the unconscious mind. Even though he will certainly be remembered by history as one of the greatest creative geniuses of the 20th century, as a young man, John Cleese wasn't really into any of the fine arts. In fact, he did science at school and then went on to study law at Cambridge. As a result, the first time he discovered he could be creative was in his 20s. The thing happened by surprise. Pretty much on a whim, he decided to join an artistic society called the Footlights. He had frequented their little vaudeville shows, which were put on in a small club room just around his Cambridge lodgings, and in time grew to like the members. I didn't join the Footlights because I thought I might want to go into show business, he explains. I joined the club because its members were the nicest bunch of people I met at Cambridge. Now, to become a member of the Footlights, one first had to write something. So Cleese was asked to come up with a couple of sketches to perform them before the fellows of the society. It was during the course of writing these sketches that Cleese realized that he could be creative. But he also realized something far more interesting, namely, that his most creative ideas had much more to do with the inner workings of his unconscious mind than with his deliberate conscious efforts. Cleese would often get stuck writing a sketch in the evening, but in the morning, almost miraculously, he'd wake up with a solution to the problem he had been wrestling with the night before. This is how I began to discover that if I put the work in before going to bed, I often had a little creative idea overnight, he writes. It wasn't long before I discovered something even stranger. Once again, it happened by accident. After Cleese lost a parody of a sermon he had co-written with his friend Graham Chapman, not wanting to tell Chapman about it, he decided to rewrite the whole thing from memory. After a while, Cleese found the original sketch and compared it to the remembered version. To his astonishment, the latter was actually an improvement that couldn't have been possible if some part of his mind hadn't continued to think about the sketch after he and Graham had finished it. It wasn't like the tip of the tongue phenomenon, Cleese explains. You can't remember a name. You chase after it in your mind and find you cannot recall it, and then a few moments later, when you're thinking about something else, the name pops into your mind. Clearly, your brain was still working on it even after you'd given up. The essence of creativity. Early in his career, Thomas Edison, the man with more patents than anyone in history, realized that his best ideas came to him in that funny no man's land between being awake and being asleep. So in times of need, he practiced dozing off in a comfy armchair with a few metal balls in his hand and a metal ball underneath. Whenever he'd actually fall asleep, his hand would relax and the balls in his hand and a metal ball underneath. Edison couldn't have known, but in doing this, he was actually making sure to use his tortoise mind at least as much as hare brain. In essence, claims Cleese, that's what the creative process is all about, literally and dreamily playing around with concepts using your tortoise mind before allowing your hare brain to take over and polish the murky products of the unconscious into a clear and easily graspable idea. The man who first discovered this was a remarkable psychologist called Donald Mackinnon. After interviewing a number of architects over a long period of time, he realized that what distinguished the creative from the unoriginal ones were two things and two things only. First of all, the most creative architects knew how to play around. And secondly, they always deferred making their decisions for as long as they were allowed. Whereas most adults find it harder to be playful, creative adults are much like children, and that they can get enjoyable absorbed in a puzzle. The reason why they don't just want to solve it so that they can get to the next one is that they delight in the process of solving itself. That's why they don't want to rush it. Why would you want to finish before your deadline when what you're doing makes you feel good? Most people confuse deferring decisions to indecisiveness. But creative adults aren't indecisive. They are just much better at tolerating the vague sense of worry that we all get when we leave something unresolved. They are also great at corralling blocks of time for creative endeavors, as they are mindful of the fact that the greatest killer of creativity is interruption. Research has shown that it can take 8 minutes for an artist to return to their previous state of consciousness after the slightest interruption, and up to 20 minutes to get back into a state of deep focus. So if you want to get your creative juices flowing, begin by treating your creative hours with respect and by putting up a do not disturb sign on your door. Robert Disney put one such sign even while he was sleeping. It said, "Quiet. The poet is currently doing some of his best work." A few creative hints and suggestions. And now for something completely different, or rather pretty much the same, but translated into a few short and sweet practical hints and suggestions. As we already mentioned, Cleese believes that anyone can learn to be creative, or even better, that anyone can learn how to create the circumstances in which they will be at their creative best. Here is some of his advice. Number one, write about what you know. Obviously, enough you're most likely to be most creative in an area that you already know and care about. To quote Cleese, is it likely you would think, well, as I've always worked on a commercial fishing boat, I'm going to write a biography of a famous Indonesian temple dancer. Number two, borrow other people's ideas. William Shakespeare, the greatest writer in history, wrote 38 plays, yet only one of them, The Tempest, has a plot he invented. Shakespeare stole all other from other writers, but then wrote rather creatively, as novelist T.S. Eliot once wrote, "Immature poets imitate, mature poets steal, bad poets deface what they take, and good poets make it into something better, or at least something different." Number three, make imaginative leaps by making small steps. Many small and rather uncreative amendments given time can result in a revolutionary improvement. Sometimes just thinking about such amendments can help you with a breakthrough. Remember, the unconscious is totally unpredictable. Number four, keep going experience. Believe the Buddhists is much more vivid when not dulled by familiarity. We call this Shoshin, or beginner's mind. It means having an attitude of openness, eagerness, and lack of openness. Preconceptions when studying any subject, even when studying it at an advanced level, whereas in science you will have to spend years educating yourself before you can be creative. In the arts, it's quite likely that your first works will be the most original you'll ever produce. To maintain a constant high level of freshness, be sure to also maintain your beginner's mind. Number five, cope with setbacks by embracing them. When Cleese and Chapman started writing together, it often had a fallow period, that is to say, a period in which they could do no writing. Despite this, they noticed they had a consistent average 15 to 18 minutes of good stuff a week. We came to understand, remember Cleese, what the blockages weren't an interruption in the process, they were part of it. So rather than beating yourself up about them, embrace them, which is to say, just keep showing up until your unconscious is ready to tell you a thing or two. As Churchill once remarked, if you're going through hell, keep going. Well guys, I think that was it for today's summary. I hope you enjoyed it, guys. Some little hints and actually like advice about creativity and how to be creative. So make sure, guys, to find your niche that you are creative in. Be creative in it as much as you can. So whereas perfecting a creative work is the reasoning stuff of skill and sharp creativity, is what happens when you limit the logic force in your brain. So sleep more, take a walk whenever you can, shower as often as possible. Okay, do the last one if you want to be creative or not, guys. Okay, so that's it, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Make sure to like and subscribe to my channel and to my book club for more book summaries. And any book summary that you want to and any book, guys, that you want me to summarize for you, just type it in the comments. I love you guys. And here are some actually like book club. Just hit the playlist, so you're gonna see it right now.